So let's look at this. Now what we have is we have bonus sales in the northern region, and you can see that we have in column A we have a name and employee number in the next column at quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the corresponding columns there. You also notice that in column G we have totals, but there are no totals here yet. So if we want to put a total in there, what would be the first way you would think of putting it in there? Just adding them up. Yes, just go through, get out your calculator, or do it in your head if you're that good at math, and just add up quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, and just type in the result into the total. But what happens if in quarter 3 we increase that by $1,000? Now what do? Yes, you have to go and you have to change your total. You have to re-enter, retype your total in the total column there. Now, the beauty of a formula, this is why it's so nice to have technology, is what this enables us to do is we can let Excel do all the math for us. That's why we're writing formulas. If you're like me, you can do math on a calculator, but when you try to do it in your head, you get a little confused. Well, maybe you're not like me, but I'm that way anyway. So what this enables us to do is it enables us to allow Excel to calculate for us any changes. So at any time any of these numbers change, if we come back next year and start entering in new quarter information, or we enter in a new salesperson, we can have Excel calculate these big numbers for us so that it knows. Addition is no big deal, but what if we were taking the average sales? It'd be a little more difficult to do manually, right? So we're going to look at doing that as well. We'll look at doing that later. That's actually what's called a function, and we're going to look at functions next. But for now, let's look at entering in a total, a formula to get the total for Kendra James. So if you would, let's select cell, or navigate to cell G5. And in cell G5, how does a formula start? Yes, all formulas start with the equal sign. So we're going to type in the equal sign first. Then we're just going to type in the cell reference to the cell that we're wanting to add up, because we're going to use the addition here. So I'm going to type in where is Kendra James's quarter 1 sales? C5. Okay, so we're going to type in C5. Notice as I type C5 that it turns the reference here to blue, and then there's also a blue square down here around C5. That indicates to me that this reference corresponds to that number, so I can see, I have a visual effect of what I'm actually typing in. So now I have C5, I'm just going to type a plus sign, and then I'm going to type in D5, another plus sign, and I'm going to type in E5, and notice as I type that the color reference of the cell reference that I'm typing in here is changed, and then there's also a corresponding box that shows up showing that reference, and then finally a plus sign and an F5 to end my formula and have Excel display the value of that formula. I'm just going to press enter, or we can click the enter check up here next to the formula bar. If we do that, it keeps our focus on that current cell. It doesn't move off of it, which is what happens when we hit the enter key. So now we see that what we've got is we've got the total for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 for Kendra James. Excel has gone out and calculated for us, thank goodness, $23,442. Okay, sounds right. It is right. Now, so let's do this. Let's go in and let's update our data so that we can see how Excel is going to update the results in that cell. So let's go to quarter 3 for Kendra James on E5, and we're going to change $3,958 to $4,958. Effectively, we're going to add $1,000 to our total. So I'm just going to use F2 to put me in edit mode. I'm going to go back to the beginning and delete out the 3 and change it to a 4. And now, as soon as I leave the cell, watch how it's going to update. Right now it's $23,442. I've added $1,000, and when I press enter, it now changes my total to $24,442, increasing my total by $1,000. That is what is so cool about formulas. Pretty cool, huh? Well, it gets even cooler. Okay, we can actually, there's a second way. As we said earlier, there's a multiple way. Generally, there's multiple ways of entering data and getting the same results. So if you'll turn over to page 2-12 in your book, we're going to enter the cell references. Let's go to cell G5 again so that we can see in our formula bar what our formula is. It's C5 plus D5 plus E5 plus F5. Okay? Now, what that's done is it summed those things up for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter in basically the same formula with different references. We're going to reference row 6 this time because we're going to add it up for Pamela Carter. But instead of typing in the cell references, instead of typing in C5 and D5, E5 and F5, I'm going to use my mouse to select those cells, and Excel will actually insert the cell reference for me. So let's move down to G6, and how does every formula begin? With an equal sign. So let's type an equal first. And now using your mouse, instead of typing in C6, we're going to click on C6. And notice when I do, it automatically inserts C6 again with a blue reference. Now I can't see the blue reference as much. I can only see the corners of it flashing because it's actually selected with that Excel dashed selection line there. I'm going to type a plus sign. Now you can see the blue square. I'm going to select D6, and notice I don't have to keep going back to that active cell where I'm typing in my formula. Each time I click, it keeps my cursor here so that I can stay active in there and I can just continue to type to enter in those operators. So now I have D6. I'm going to click on E6, plus sign, and then F6. Okay? And now I have C6, D6, plus E6, plus F6, right? So these are all basically the same formula that I entered in above it, but instead of looking at row 5, I'm now looking at row 6. So here we've entered them in with the mouse. So just press an Enter key, and now that gives us the results for Pamela Carter. Okay? Little shortcut way of doing it. Now, we're going to look at one more shortcut. Just before this, we talked about the autofill handle. The autofill handle, again, is the little square at the very lower right-hand corner of the box, of the cell box. As you're in there, you'll see that that lower right-hand corner has a little square on it, just like we did earlier. Now, when I put my cursor there, what I get is I get a solid plus sign, a little solid black plus sign that tells me that I am in the right position. Remember, we started out talking about this. Anytime you do something in Excel, your cursor's almost always going to be one form or another of a plus sign. Okay? That plus sign is either going to be the big fat plus sign, which is the big broad white one, which is selection. If you move to a border, you get four arrowheads on the cursor, which is the move. And if I go to here to the autofill, I get the solid plus. So let's go up to G6, and we're going to use our autofill handle, and we're going to autofill down to row 7. So grab the corner, make sure you have the right cursor, that solid black plus sign, drag down, and you'll see you get the dashed line, and just release your mouse, and it's going to insert 23,765. So if I select that cell, I can now see that Excel actually copied the formula from row 6 down to row 7, and it updated the 6's referencing row 6 to 7's referencing row 7, which is the cell that I copied it into. That's what we call a relative reference.